Good afternoon. Thank you. Welcome to the inauguration ceremony of Mayor Christopher B. Coleman, the 45th Mayor of the City of St. Paul. My name is Kathy Lantry, and I'm proud to serve as the President of the St. Paul City Council. Before we begin, I want to just make sure that we acknowledge Solomon and Asia Parham Quintet for providing the fabulous music. It really was wonderful to hear their sound, and we appreciate your wonderful renditions. Thank you very much. We also have a bunch of sponsors who have made today possible. As you know, the mayor's office has to do a lot of work to make sure that an event like this goes off without a hitch, so we have a bunch of sponsors to thank, and I hope you'll indulge me while I thank them all. Comcast, Lockridge Grindle Nowen, Mortensen Construction, Travelers, the Turf Club and First Avenue, 3M, Goff Public, Larkin Hoffman Attorneys, McGran Shea Carnival Strong and Lamb, Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, Minnesota Wild, Ryan Companies, St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, the St. Paul Building and Construction Trades Council, the St. Paul Port Authority, Visit St. Paul, and Xcel Energy. So big round of applause for those guys, so thank you. Today we are gathered to recognize Mayor Coleman's third inauguration of the mayor of this great city. Because the mayor was preparing for this event, I had the honor of standing in for him at the firefighter graduation that just wrapped up about an hour ago. And it occurred to me that there are some distinct similarities between the two rites. And Mayor, I know you've done enough of the firefighter graduations to notice a couple of things, probably the same things that I have. First of all, when they come up to get their badge, they give their requisite "thank you, ma'am," or "thank you, sir." And they all look way too young to drive, much less save lives. And they are nervous, sweaty palms, anxiety. They realize what a really big deal it is to become a St. Paul firefighter, and the promise of doing great things for their new employer is obvious. Much like all of our city employees, our new firefighters clearly feel a sense of responsibility, and we want them to. In the same way, we make a big deal out of the mayor's inauguration. Our mayor is way past anxiety and sweaty palms, but the mantle of responsibility is still an important piece of today's event. It is an occasion to remember and celebrate all that we have achieved and to look forward to what's to come in the years ahead. There is symbolism in our location today as well. 4 years ago, we gathered right here, St. Paul's Union Depot, with a feeling of hope for what so many had envisioned. Working in partnership, this very building was renovated and will soon reclaim its title as the region's preeminent transportation hub. We fought to make the Green Line a reality, and in a few short months, the trains will be running down University Avenue, connecting our residents to school, shops, and work opportunities. We have revitalized St. Paul's downtown as a vibrant city center with arts, entertainment, and great housing that is attracting new employers. We've invested in our neighborhoods and our youth, building strong communities across the city. And although it's not a sexy thing, we've built a stable, structurally sound budget. We have a lot to be proud of, but a lot left to do. And we're going to celebrate our successes and our goals in just a minute. But first, I ask that you please stand for the presentation of the colors by the St. Paul Police Color Guard and the Local 21 Color Guard, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. From its inception, St. Paul has been defined by how we value arts and culture. Proudly, we are home to the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, McNally Smith College of Music, the Fitzgerald Theater, Excel River Center, an active artist culture in Lowertown, and so much more. In 2006, Mayor Coleman continued with this emphasis on arts and culture by naming Carol Connolly as St. Paul's first Poet Laureate. Ms. Connolly has lived up to that title and more, just 2 years ago winning the 2011 Minnesota Book Awards K. Sexton Award. Please welcome Carol to the stage.
What great partners. I'm very honored to be the St. Paul Poet Laureate, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to write this poem for marking the inauguration of Chris Coleman, a fine mayor. The new year arrives on solid ground, carefully tended by those who make this city the beauty it is. The 7 sturdy hills surrounding us are alive with the light and magic of progress our ancestors, upon whose shoulders we stand, could not have imagined. Winter bare trees in Rice Park bloom with millions of tiny white lights, illuminate the city rink, where skaters of every age and every speed circle and glide, glide and circle in perfect harmony. The Ordway builds a concert hall, but while keeps its stage doors open wide to a beautiful bounty of theater and concerts by our St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. Wounded, left for dead, but rescued by our mayor without a bit of fanfare. No fanfare marked our mayor's heroic Red Bull crashed ice performance, but it left us gasping. We managed to carry on. We celebrated Dragon Festival, Hmong New Year, marched in parades, danced in the street during the Selby Jazz Festival. We reveled in the magnificent Union Depot restoration, and it is beautiful, isn't it? Enhanced by the historic Red Cap Room and installation of fine art marking the depot's close ties to Lowertown, where creativity lives and thrives. We do not forget the unsung heroes among us. We bow with gratitude to each of them. Winter bare trees in Mears Park also bloom with millions of tiny lights, shining and waiting for the Green Line and the all-wondrous, all-new St. Paul Saints ballpark. None of this remarkable progress blinds us to our reliable respect for equality and justice. We honor our mayor and his lifelong love for this city. He honors us with his election as National League of Cities president. Our mayor, who cheered with good humor when St. Paul made first place on the national hipster list. Our mayor, who honors every sort of responsible progress, who works to make the best education available in school and after school for our children. They will be the next great generation. Tonight, the sun will set. Lights in every corner of our city will burn steady. Skaters, old and young, will play hockey on a backyard pond or an indoor rink, shoot for the sky, and with hope and every good intention, we move with them into this new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. It's always a pleasure to hear Carol's words of wisdom. St. Paul is home to many schools and is proud of them all. I want to introduce the Central Chamber Singers from Central High School who are going to grace us with two wonderful songs, America the Beautiful, arranged by Nina Gilbert, and You Are the New Day by John David, arranged by Peter Knight. Okay, who found them? How great were they? Just absolutely stunning. And so now we're going to have the inauguration. Were you wondering what we were all doing? So I want to welcome Mayor Coleman's family, his daughter Molly, son Aiden, and wife Connie to the stage. The oath of office will be administered by District Court Judge Daniel C. Moreno, a friend and former colleague of Mayor Coleman, who both served in the Hennepin County Public Defender's Office. Judge Moreno.
I think they want me over on this side to get your picture. They didn't come to see me.
Yes, they did.
All right, put your hand on the Bible. I, Christopher B. Coleman,
I, Christopher B. Coleman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the constitutions
to support the constitutions
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and that I will discharge faithfully
and that I will discharge faithfully
the duties devolving upon me
the duties devolving upon me
as mayor of the city of St. Paul
as mayor of the city of St. Paul
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and ability.
and ability.
Congratulations, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Thank you all for being with me here this afternoon and with my family. To all the elected officials, business and philanthropic partners, campaign workers, community members, department directors, all the city staff, I can't tell you how much it means to have you here with me today. I want to especially thank my old friend and colleague, Judge Moreno, for honoring me by swearing me in for a third time as the mayor of the city of St. Paul. I want to thank the people of the city of St. Paul for bestowing upon me once again their trust for me to be the mayor of this great city. To Carol Conley and our musicians for that beautiful music, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything. To my family, Aiden, Molly, and Connie, for their love and support, for all the years that you have put up with me, thank you. I'm surrounded by most of my brothers and my sister and many of their family members. We remember that 4 years ago, I was sworn in just a few short days after my stepmother, Deborah Howell, passed away. My mother, Bridget, was with us that day, but within a few months, we would also be saying our final goodbyes to her, and were diminished by their absence. To Council President Lantry, my council colleagues, past and present, upon whom much of the credit of the progress that we have made these past years depends, and to our newest council member, Dai Tao, I look forward to the next 4 years working with you to move the city forward. And to our regional partners, Mayor Betsy Hodges, former Mayor R.T. Rybeck, your presence here underscores the importance of our work and our partnership. Thank you. It wasn't so long ago that occasions like this would include an obligatory reference to the dawning of the 21st century and all the opportunity inherent in a new beginning. Who could have imagined what the first 14 years of this much anticipated century would bring? We harnessed the power of science and mapped the human genome. At the same time, nature showed the world its frailty with tsunamis, hurricanes, and tornadoes. While we witnessed brave acts of heroism in the field of combat or in a plane that landed on the Hudson River, we were shown unimaginably violent acts of cowardice in Sandy Hook, Aurora, and communities across this country. September 11, 2001 brought the country together in an unprecedented way. But today our country is so polarized, Congress can barely pass a budget. Whether the signature events of the early days of this century happened in a neighboring city or halfway around the world, we in St. Paul have been touched by them. We, along with our neighbors in cities across the globe, have struggled to understand the story behind the headlines, the whys and hows, so complex as to challenge even the wisest among us. Were there decisions we made or failed to make as a society? Policies we adopted or failed to adopt, investments we didn't make or relationships we didn't build that sowed the seeds of that which we must now resolve? More importantly, the events of the early days of the 21st century all have consequences that will stretch well into the future. As hard as they have been to understand, we know that they were not simply moments in time. We know that they were each in their own way a clarion call for fundamental change. It is not too early then to talk about the 22nd century and how history will judge us in this time and place and how we will set the course for a new century. I'm convinced that we will be measured by whether we help make St. Paul a great city, not for some, but for all. By whether we took seriously our obligation to the health of our planet, by whether we found strength in our diversity, and whether we, as Nelson Mandela challenged us, found power in forgiveness and reconciliation. Perhaps most fundamentally of all, we will be asked how well a child born in St. Paul today, whatever her race or color, socioeconomic status or country of origin, how well has she been prepared to lead this city and this country forward? While I think there's much to be proud of in what we have done these last several years, it is clear that our work is not done. And while I take great pride in how far we have come, I am humbled by the tough work that lies ahead. The last 8 years have been marked by extraordinary change in St. Paul. They've also been marked by vast challenges that have tested us as a city. While projects such as the Central Corridor Green Line have reshaped the landscape of University Avenue and downtown, the worst recession since the Great Depression created great hardship for too many of our families. While new restaurants and renewed vitality in the heart of our city were helping us rethink downtown's tired old image, our neighborhoods were decimated by a foreclosure crisis that engulfed cities across America. But St. Paul did what it has always done. We made the most of our opportunities and met our most difficult challenges head on. We did not let the hard realities of 8 years of a difficult economy stall our progress. The investment in infrastructure was met with private investment. New businesses opened across the city, including in areas where little such investment had been seen for decades. The sad sight of abandoned industrial buildings had been replaced by a new generation of entrepreneurs. And bold visions for remaining sites have emerged through community dialogue and strong partnerships. We put away rivalries that pitted the central players in this metropolitan region against each other and recognized that together we can compete against any region in this country, if not in the world. We live in a world where the majority of residents live in cities for the first time in our history. Cities must be vibrant, attractive places if we're to compete for a pool of young, talented workers who decide first where they will live and second where they will work. We fully understand now what we only partially understood a few short years ago. Great transportation networks include light rail, buses, streetcars, and bike paths. And they aren't some Portlandic vision of utopia, but they're necessities and necessary amenities of a world-class city. We know too that a commitment to the environment and sustainability is a fundamental cornerstone of who we are as a city. And for a city that boasts the most miles of shoreline upon our greatest river, this is doubly true. And we recognize that sometimes doing the outlandish is not just about watching athletes hurtle themselves down quarter-mile-long tubes of icy bumps and jumps, but rather tells the story of a city willing to take chances and test limits. Just as the first years of the century have challenged us, they have also given us reason for hope and confidence that we are on the right path. U.S. manufacturing is on the rebound as entrepreneurs figure out how to harness the power of new ideas, new technologies, and new challenges to rebuild the economic infrastructure of our country. Americans of all backgrounds came together to elect the first African-American president in the United States history, sending a firm signal to a child that no matter your race or socioeconomic status, there are no limits to the heights to which you can ascend. Marriage equality is now the law in Minnesota and 18 other states. We've eliminated one more barrier to freedom and equality for every single person and created a place for all families in our midst. At the many colleges and universities throughout St. Paul, people from across the globe are preparing themselves to be world leaders, dedicating themselves to developing more sustainable means of generating power, untangling the mysteries of disease, giving expression to the human experience, and sometimes setting an example by being the first member of their family to go to college. While there's great reason for the spirit of optimism that fills our city, we are at our best when we challenge ourselves to do better. It was this spirit that allowed us to say to the Central Corridor Project, we must serve those who are most in need of a first-class transit system. This led to the inclusion of 3 additional stops along the line. It also led to an unprecedented effort to help businesses survive the construction along the corridor and to take advantage and thrive on the newly reconstructed University Avenue. Our willingness to challenge ourselves led us to say we would become the greenest city in America. We met this challenge several decades ago when Mayor Latimer and others created the district energy system. We continued by making the River Center complex among the most energy efficient convention centers in the country, examined all of our buildings for energy efficiency, worked with community partners such as Xcel Energy to help homeowners lessen their energy consumption. Together we faced many challenges. We've overcome them. Our city has thrived. But as we head deep into the 21st century, we must confront a challenge as old as the country itself. While we believe ourselves to be a society where all are created equal, one need only examine our classrooms to understand this isn't true. With our children of color graduating at half the rates of their white peers, we can no longer accept this historic inequality. We see the effects of the achievement gap continuing in the workplace, where the unemployment rate for people of color is twice that of white people. But I see in St. Paul a city that is willing to meet this challenge. I see a community no longer willing to perpetuate patterns set long ago. And I see a people who fundamentally understand that a just community is an inclusive community where all thrive with true equality of opportunity. And I believe it begins with education. I've often said that education is my crime-fighting strategy, my neighborhood revitalization strategy, my economic development strategy. Whether we meet the fundamental inequity in education head-on and close the achievement gap while raising outcomes for all children will be the true measure by which my administration and our city will be judged. I place this measuring rod before us today knowing full well that it will be among the most difficult work we have ever done. The gaps in our community exist in spite of hard work and in spite of many millions of dollars directed at its resolution. We must examine the origins of the disparity and not be afraid to attack the systemic causes, whether they lie in institutional racism or inadvertent perpetuation of inequality. Our most important work begins with providing children, from the day they are born, the resources they need to be successful. We know the hard work of teachers in our classrooms, but success in the classroom begins long before a child ever steps into kindergarten. Recent studies show that children from lower income families, by the time they're 18 months old, already have millions fewer words spoken to them than their middle class and wealthier future classmates. They enter kindergarten with severely limited vocabularies, challenging the whole education system to make up for lost time. Those same children from lower income families are also deprived of quality out of school time experiences and enriching summer experiences that sustain in-school learning. Thus, teachers find themselves constantly fighting to overcome a lack of opportunity that children have outside the classroom. This in no way negates the need for high-quality teaching, and our teachers must build their capacity to reach the increasingly diverse students they encounter in their classroom every day. But like any great recipe, you cannot add more of one ingredient hoping that no one notices you forgot the others. The success of our students can only happen when we recognize the complexity of all that creates it. We all play a role in that process. Whether you're a business owner that can provide a young person a summer job, a retiree that can read to a child in an out-of-school time or after-school program, or an artist that can help unlock a child's creative passion, we all play a role. We've seen the beginnings of success. Our Sprockets network is opening the doors across the city for children to have enriching out-of-school time activities. The Promise neighborhood is demonstrating the importance of all partners working together to change outcomes for children in the Frogtown and Summit University neighborhoods. Under the leadership of Superintendent Silva, our schools are making great progress. Schools like Washington Technology Magnet are a great example. With the largest extended day program in the state, a program required of all students, Washington Magnet has seen MCA math scores increase 13% in 1 year. Despite having more students with individual education plans and students receiving English language learning services than any school in the state of Minnesota, 99% of their students graduated last year. While we may not understand all the reasons why the achievement gap exists, we clearly understand the urgency with which we must confront it. We cannot be satisfied with incremental progress that condemns yet another generation of children to low achievement. Let us rededicate ourselves here, tonight, to this endeavor, lest we as a generation be judged lacking. Recently, I met a man who looked to be in his late 80s. He was severely disfigured, blind, and needed assistance getting out of his chair. He was assisted by another gentleman who wanted to introduce me to him. He told me that the older man had served in Patton's army, was in Europe in D-Day, and was struck that day by a mortar and nearly died. This man has carried the reminders of his sacrifice with him every day for nearly 70 years. After speaking to him for just a minute, I thanked him for his service, and I was reminded why his generation has come to be known as the greatest generation. As I walked away, I asked myself how our generation will be judged against this high standard set by this gentleman and those like him. But I realized that that was the wrong question. While I believe that this country is capable of another next greatest generation, the more relevant question for us today is, are we raising the next such group of young men and women who will meet head-on the great challenges of their time and win the battle here and across the globe? I don't mean militarily. Rather, will our children be ready to confront the challenges they face, whether on the environment or poverty, inequality or hunger? The homeless person looking for a shelter at the newly rebuilt Dorothy Day Center, or the ills confronting millions across the globe living in slums so vast that few in this country can even imagine them. In this task of guiding this next generation, I think not of my father and mother's generation, but of my grandparents. For it was they that truly knew hardship, not of growing up in a depression, but of raising a family in one, not of fighting a war, but of sending children off to fight it, and fearing every day, every knock at that door for years. They came, many of them, from other countries. They knew the hardships of a new land or speaking with an accent. But they knew as well the great hope of the city, this state, and this country. No, our quest is not to be the next greatest generation, but we will be great if we give rise to a generation of children, well-educated, prepared for challenges we cannot foresee, and as diverse as the great city they come from. This is our task. Our success will be determined by others. We can only judge our efforts, and by that measure, we cannot fail. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to work on the job sites of Habitat for Humanity, as a new home has arisen to provide comfort and shelter for a family struggling to make their way. On those projects, people from all stations in life come together to build a community. I've worked with CEOs and city workers. I've worked with legislators and laborers. And I've worked alongside the future homeowner who isn't waiting for someone to provide for him, but is grateful for support of a community that cares for him. When all work together to build that house, we create a small corner of St. Paul and make it a little bit better, more welcoming, and a safer place to raise a family. Let's all lift our hammers together to build not just one home, but a city that welcomes all, provides for all, cares for all. That is the St. Paul that I believe in. It's the city that I'm honored to lead. It's the city that we have built together. And with all good construction projects, let us pause and assess our work to date. But rather than admire the half-finished job, let's keep building until our work is done. Thank you very much.